This is the Reflector Reflections podcast. My name is Annie. Join me as we journey around the world talking with fellow human design enthusiasts, specifically reflectors, as they experiment and navigate their unique design. Today's beautiful conversation is with Erika. Erika is a 1-3 reflector with the right angle cross as the Sphinx. She's a multi-modality mystic. She's probably going to change that on me. But anyway, that's what she is right now today. And she uses astrology, human design, and gene keys in her business. And I'm just so excited for this banter with you because we have a mutual love of our dear friend Destiny. So it's like, besties coming together.
You know what? I honestly heard Destiny on your podcast. That's actually like how I got connected with her. Like I heard her on your podcast and reached out to her from that. So that's kind of a cool full circle moment there. That's
That
cool.
is.
But yes,
Oh,
I love Destiny so much.
we love her. Everyone loves her. We love
Yes.
you. As we do, though, let's talk about you and your journey. So, how did you find human design or human design find you, friend?
So I found actually no, it did find me through an energy reading actually through a local friend here of mine. So she kind of knows, I guess that 1-3 was already shining through that I love to, like go down these rabbit holes with things. And she was like, I'm feeling like you need a new one, and I'm feeling like it's human design. Like, have you heard of human design? And I was like, no, I have not. And yeah, so that's how I found out. I just did a quick little internet search there and pulled my chart and sent that to her. She's like, I think that's actually like a really rare type that you have. And I was like, really? And there we go.
How did that feel when you started to go through that? I love this moment. Take me back to that moment.
Yeah, so it was interesting for me because I'd already had like probably like a good 6 years of like deep study of astrology under my belt before that point in time. So I remember like one thing that really stood out to me was like waiting a lunar cycle and how transits were so important. And I was like, I have already like got this in the bag. I was like, I've been kind of living in alignment with the moon already, just naturally. So I thought that was really cool. But then also like in astrology, if anybody listening might not, understand anything about this, but I have a fifth house stellium in Aquarius. And so, that already kind of reads as like being a little weird, a little eccentric, a little rare or out there or whatever. But nothing like it didn't quite hit me in the same way that the description for being a reflector hit me in the out there weird kind of like vibes of it, and also just that like feeling of never really being seen, I think was something that really struck an emotional chord with me. And so I would say like at first it was actually kind of depressing a little bit, honestly, and then it kind of subsided, as time went on. But my initial reaction was kind of sad about it.
Yeah. I I know a lot of people, some come into human design knowing very basic information about astrology, and then they go on to learn astrology because it kind of ignites this fire in them. And then there's other people such as yourself that have this really deep well of knowledge with astrology, and then you come into human design and you're trying to overlay the two things together. Did you do that? Because I know sometimes it can be like,
Yes.
but hang on a second, if this and this and this, and they're trying to sort of like make it match.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I have like 3 PowerPoints saved on my computer right now where I have done just weird little puzzle things like that. Like kind of trying to like currently I'm trying to explain all of the gates in like an archetypal journey kind of sense through each zodiac sign, to kind of just like compile that information down. But yeah, first I was like, how do gates, how do gates work, like how does this form a gate, or like how do you decide which gates go in which center, and like how does that kind of correlate, where are the trines, where are the squares, I don't know, stuff like that. So yes, I definitely have went on a journey with that.
Have you been able to figure it out?
Well, thankfully for Destiny, her and I have some just amazingly deep conversations about all this and kind of comparing information with each other. So yes, we're on to some cool stuff. We found some cool connections. But no, not completely. There's still unanswered questions for sure. Like there's still some holes.
Yeah. And, my unconscious first line to your conscious first line, I know how deep that can really get. Sometimes it's this feeling. I just know for me how it can be this, I have to know. And
Yeah.
I'll go and I go deep and all of a sudden I might come out a couple of days later. I'm like, what happened there?
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
think that's the thing with human design, isn't it? It's a synthesis. It's a blending of everything, and we can't just take either of these and just try and make it fit because it just doesn't. But
Exactly.
that leads us in, I suppose. Let's have a chat about that first line of yours, that 1-3 profile. Have you been able to sort of like overlay this a little bit with your astrology knowledge of yourself, or is that kind of new?
Actually, more recently I've kind of been thinking about this in the sense that, like, first of all, no, I don't think there's anything in my chart that screams like, hey, this lady is going to be very investigative and trial and error. um However, I do have something called intercepted houses in astrology, which is my third and ninth house, which is the house of learning and teaching and information and sharing of that information. And so I do think it's something that, like, I've been more, I would say, unconscious of until human design. But then once I discovered human design, I was like, oh, yeah, I can totally see this about myself. And I can also totally see how maybe I don't want to like accept this about myself because of my intercepted houses. And so it really did help me like validate a lot of things that astrology was not helping me, kind of needing the tools to work through, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
absolutely. And, for me, because I knew astrology, but very basic astrology coming into human design, and I've gone the opposite way. So I've gone down this whole rabbit hole of learning, and it's been such a complementary modality to study and to study self, because that's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about. I'm all about study of self. Um, because I've been running this experiment of having people who we're all born within a really small window of each other. And I know human design, we get under we get to the color and the tone and things like that. But it's so fascinating because then you throw the charts into astrology, and all of a sudden you see it a little bit more clearer of how
Mm-hmm.
different you are. So
Mm-hmm.
that's been really good for me.
I really, really like that you bring that up, because that's a topic that has come up with me a lot in the, like, kind of, I feel like I'm kind of also like bringing people in the astrology community like into human design. And I've heard this like saying from people that astrology is not as deep as human design, or like, human design can get more specific than astrology. And it's like, I don't know about that. Like there's so many like deep configurations within astrology as well. That's very unique, and also down to the minute and down to the degrees. It's all very specific. It's just different. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I just like it all. It's just like, whoa,
So do I. It's
here we
fascinating.
it's like just give me something to learn. And
Right.
speaking of learning, because that is a one true love of mine, and I'm fairly certain for you it probably is as well. But I found through this study of self learning that I'm a natural learner, like in another modality. That's my top strength is learning. So it's like it fuels me, it gives me energy. And I remember even last year going on a little retreat, and the lady was just like, "What are you doing?" Because I was reading a study book. What are you doing? You're supposed to be on retreat, and I am. But this is nourishing for me. It might not be for other people, but it's really nourishing for me. Do you find that with that conscious first line?
100%. Yeah. Like it's like a comforting thing to me, or even like a hobby. It feels like a passion. And I have kind of like, I'm a Sphinx, so I'm kind of like really love learning all things identity as well. And all of these different modalities, I feel like they do like blend together, and they do lay on top of each other and lead into each other. But I've also, I also kind of in the same way when it comes to like world systems or politics or like spiral dynamics. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but I will kind of rabbit hole into those things too. And I feel like those things also interplay with these other modalities in like more of a societal kind of lens or view. So yeah, 100%. I would agree with that, that it's something I love.
It's like it makes us giddy. It's like
Yeah,
we love it, And I know that
exactly.
they say that, don't they? That the 1-3 or the first line is, oh, you're the investigator, but I think that's shooting it so short. It's a real deep well of needing to learn, and not just books. I think see some of those memes. It's like the 1-3 is just sitting there reading a book. It's so much more than that. It's a
Yeah.
depth.
I
Um,
think it's like trying to find the essence of that thing that you're studying, like some kind, like it's like almost like this feeling that you've unlocked something within you that it's just like become a part of you at some point. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's what I'm always like trying to rabbit hole towards.
I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. So finding this human design out, coming through this pathway of astrology, going, oh yeah, I kind of think I got this figured out a little bit. You get hit then with this strategy and authority. Woohoo, got to wait a lunar cycle. Talk to me about did you, I guess, first question, did you go down that rabbit hole of experimentation, and how did that work for you?
I would say that when I first found out, kind of like what I already said about looking backwards, how I'd already been kind of following transits and moon cycles, it was like that was actually the first thing that hit me, that I was like, yeah, I actually know that works. I know that works. Like, I feel like I had been doing the experimentation with that already. I got hooked up with a local group back in like 2017, and we would get together every new moon and every full moon, and we would do like a little tarot spread together as a group. And then on full moons we would release and burn a list, and on new moons we would manifest, and set our intentions. And I have been doing that like religiously almost ever since, just kind of like it just always felt right to me to do. And when I found this out, I thought back to how many times like these things worked for me. Like, I remember I was with a guy who was an ass, and I wanted to leave the relationship. And on a full moon, I wrote his name down and then burned the list. And that night, he packed his stuff up and left. Like, it always felt that powerful to me. So like, I would say yes, because I feel like I have been doing that part of it for a really long time. The indecisiveness part was nice though, because then it made sense, like, oh, that's why I also need this time to make a decision, or that's why my intentions change so drastically from month to month. So those things were really nice to get clarified and kind of hone in on that, and live more intentionally in that way with the cycles. But yeah, I'm a full believer of that strategy.
Do you feel that, that indecisiveness, that, taking that journey back, which I've done, I still do all the time, of your childhood, the conditioning that we had just from our parents. Do you feel like anybody has really seen you, Erika?
Well,
Just a
that's a
hard
great,
question, just a
yeah,
hard one there for you.
that's a great question, but I love it because so in astrology, I have Chiron and Leo in the 10th house and a fifth house stellium, again, like I said, but Saturn's kind of there in the mix. So from my astrology background, there was already kind of this notion of like, there's some kind of pain here when it comes to expressing yourself or being seen or being kind of like proud of your own worthiness, and all of those things are also like reputation, things like that. Um, but that, like I said, that was the part that really struck an emotional chord with me, because it was like I could see all that already, but to hear like that there was like this openness about me and everybody was kind of like missing, like that's kind of what it felt like everybody was kind of like just missing me, or like I was just kind of see through my whole life. And that really, yeah, that really resonated deeply. So I will say though, as of lately, getting connected with other reflectors, growing intimately close even with other reflectors, especially like Destiny, and shout out to Katie as well. Being in the same age range, and also Destiny has similar placements to me with that as well. It's like for the first time in my life, I feel like I've been seen in a way that I never have before. So next level, because now when I'm out and about in my local community, or like all of the things I'm doing with people that I actually see in person, and I get that feeling still, of kind of being looked over or looked through or invisible, or that like they're only seeing themselves in me, that kind of feeling that reflectors often struggle with. It's like I know that when I go home, I can, update my reflectors on my day and feel just held and seen in my experience. So it's been next level.
I love that for you because I've had a really similar experience of just, human design and the nourishing friendships that have developed from it. And, outside of even just them all being predominantly reflectors, some of them are other types. I feel it's like this real permission slip to just be our true self. I know that sounds a bit wanky, but just be like, fuck it, here it is. And you're experimenting, and it's like they see everything, and especially astrologers, we're all into this, so we're all picking apart each other's charts. And she's like, oh yeah, you're having a bad day. Let's blame that. But it's so wholesome to have these friendships. And a lot of us have spoken about this as well, of just going, because each of our friendships, and I'd love your feedback on this, throughout your life, it's like they only see a part of you. Whereas these
Mm-hmm.
friendships we have with each other, they see us. Do you find that you've got your friendships,
Yes.
or, they see just a bit?
Yes, I feel like it's almost like they see a part of you that they feel that connection with, but then the rest of it's still kind of mysterious to them. They're always kind of like, I wonder what's really going on there. Even like my best friend who's a generator, she's always just like, we have like a really strong bond and connection, but yeah, there's that just weird little like nuance to it where it's just still not fully understood or complete, and I think that that's what was really cool about getting closer to reflectors, is like you kind of also get to finally experience how other people experience you, like that deep reflection and that mirroring that you get with each other to actually see yourself accurately through another person. Wow, like I feel like that did more for me than like years of therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been talking a lot about this with people as well, going, I have grown so much just by this podcast, like fucking hands down, because I've had myself reflected back to me in every single one of these conversations. It's
Mm.
just wow. Yeah.
And to give that gift back to reflectors that you interview as well, because like again, I just don't feel like we really get that spotlight, so like to have this chance to kind of like talk about yourself is also next level. I don't think that a lot of people get that, or a lot of reflectors especially get that. Yeah.
No. And just to, there's no intention. Some people go out there and they're like, I must know all of this stuff about human design and I have to teach this. And it's just like, why can't you just allow people to be in their experiment and, enjoy the ride? Like, I'm very much pro that. It's just like, oh, you want to add that in there? Go for it. Have fun. It's your bloody
Right.
life.
Right. Well, and honestly, to kind of touch on that, with my background in astrology, there's so many different weird ways that you can take astrology, right? And everybody's cool with that. And like people write books about things that they notice, or because it is an experiment. But something I kind of like was falling, like this trap that I saw people falling into in the astrological community, was like making this thing very dogmatic. And so I was really kind of it was refreshing, I guess, to be introduced to human design and for it to actually be like, hey, this is an experiment, this is a tool that you can use. I was like that was a breath of fresh air coming out of astrology. But then also to kind of bring astrology back in with that is like also refreshing, and also kind of like I notice when people even in the human design community try to make this like a dogmatic thing. And I feel like it's like the point, just yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because we all process it very differently. Some people find this and then they just go, yeah, that's enough for me. Just knowing this is enough. And off they go and
Mhm.
toddle on with their life. Other people, they go, righto, down the rabbit hole we go. I'll
Yeah.
see you. I'll see you in 7 years.
Right.
Then others are kind of like a mix between it. They go in and out, in and out, in and out. And I just think it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
it's all it's all your own journey because that's what this is all about, is just to get to know ourselves more and love ourselves. Even that sounds a bit wanky sometimes. Just love yourself. It's like, but really though.
Yeah, that's a good point though, because I do feel like more love for yourself comes from more understanding of yourself. Kind of like when you really resentful of someone who's hurt you, the more you kind of understand the life that they went through, their psychology, like their perspective, their limitations, like the more you understand all of these things, the more compassion and understanding and love and forgiveness you have for that person. It's the same way with yourself. I truly believe that.
Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. Now, you're also a mama. You're a mama bear too,
Yes.
aren't you?
Yes.
How is that obviously finding this, because you would have been obviously in the astrology space. So it probably wouldn't have been as blah, blah, but it's like you're running all their charts, right? Did you find any
Yeah.
nuggets?
Oh yeah. So I would say the main actually human design changed my life when it comes to how I parent my kids, because I have two emo projector children, two emo projector girls. And to kind of, and I myself have a completely open solar plexus, right? So like I know for like it just suddenly clicked to me that like every time they are upset, or every time they like every time they don't get their way, or they're upset or they're sad or they're hungry or they're angry or like whatever they're going through, like I was feeling that and amplifying that and thinking that it was my own, like I'm frustrated with my child when really it was just my child's frustrated and I'm picking up on it. And so I don't know why, but just having that information, this thing like clicked in me, and I've been able to kind of like hold my own like stoic state, I guess, in the midst of their emotions. And that has been next level for them getting through their emotional waves, and for me not taking their emotions on as my own. Like that's changed everything in my household.
Yeah, me too. It's like you become the epicenter. Though sometimes I still lose my shit. Like I just sometimes go, oh, here it comes, here it comes. Calm down, calm
Yep.
down. Here it
Yep.
goes. It's like, oh fuck, it's out. What are you doing? It's like, oh
Yes.
shit. Sorry,
I
guys.
can relate. I can relate.
It's
Yes, I'm not perfect as well, but definitely a ton better than I was like 5 years ago.
two emotional projectors.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, oh God.
So
How does that
my
probing feel? Like, do they just boss you around all the time? Because I've only got one
they
projector. I'll tell you what.
try
Oh yeah.
they try and yes, like that's kind of the thing that I'm saying. Like before I had this information, I would say that I was more of like a permissive style of parents. And it was because like they could just so easily guilt trip me, honestly, like any, like it's like they kind of learned how to like manipulate that. And so what, I don't know, like once I found out it was like next level, and down came the psh, and like it's been like a line in the sand ever since. Like they at least, like I'm not perfect, but they at least know that they're not gonna like get me anymore. I guess, if that makes sense. And also now we have a lot of like plans and like coping mechanisms set in place for them to like ride out these emotional waves. And it's also really interesting, and the probing as well, like boundaries, right? Like okay, like I need my space, I need my time. uh but it's also interesting, my younger daughter, she's 7, and she kind of expresses this all in more of like an angry, like angsty kind of way. But my older daughter, she's 13 now, and she's always just kind of been like the weepy sad. So it's interesting how still they're a lot different in the way that they emote, I guess, but they both do.
I love I've got, as I said, I've only got one projector. I've got manifesting generators. Well, here in the house, I've got two other generators, older. But sometimes it's like just when I think it's the same with our charts as well. Sometimes I'll just go into this deep dive of, oh, I'm going to go check that out, and it's something that I'm discovering in my own chart because I don't have it memorized. I do, but I don't. There's always something I'm finding, and the same is with the kids. Sometimes I'll be like, I'm just going to go and have a look at that. And sure enough, I find something in there. It
Yeah.
fascinates me to no end. I'll just go in and I'm like, something's changing here. I wonder what's happening.
That is totally something that we also do in this Reflector group chat. We all also, that's what's so interesting about us. We all have 13-year-old daughters. So I don't know, like it's just crazy. But yeah, we'll like share charts and be like, I'm going through this, what's up? And everybody kind of shares like, oh my gosh, I can see, this and that. I don't know. Yeah. So that's been next level as well, and kind of helped me also again see things through a more compassionate and understanding lens, which I think is just so healing in general, especially generational. I mean, our parents, like this isn't just a reflector thing, but like everybody's parents did not know how to deal with emotions or handle emotions. So yeah, it's interesting.
I hear a lot of murmuring, in communities and things like that. Oh, poor reflector parents. But I think that we have, and I really dislike this word, but I'm going to use it. I really do believe that we have a resilience to parent. And I know that we get thrown under the bus a lot going, oh, those poor reflector parents, they must be so exhausted. But it's also, we're not. If anything, I feel for projector children or
Mm,
reflector children, not so much, who are run by generators who just don't know how to stop. And I'm watching these poor kids get just, come on, let's go all the
yeah.
time. And I think,
Yes.
wow. Um,
Yes. That does make a lot of sense. And it is interesting that people kind of have that assumption when we do have that Teflon aura, right? So like there is some resilience there when it comes to like what we're absorbing, I guess. But I mean, I can also see like how there is. I remember like a long time ago, like I don't know, when my youngest was just a baby, and kind of like seeing other examples of parents that I knew of. And I guess if you think of like the stereotypical parent that has their kids in all of these different kinds of like extracurricular activities, and their house always looks perfect, and like you kind of see them just like what feels like slaving away, and then they put this like, oh well, that's what a pinnacle mother looks like, that's a picture perfect mother. I could see how reflectors might really feel like we always are falling short of that. But I will say that I do think that my kids have more of a deep connection, with me in a way that probably the kids of those parents aren't getting. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's an assumption of mine, but I feel like we have like our own unique edge. You know what I mean?
yeah, I do. And, me raising kids as a young 20-year-old, I know exactly how that feels, where I was still running around like a Manny Gen, actually, like jumping around, and trying to keep up with them and just going, I remember that frustration amplifying.
Oh yeah.
Whereas older mummy Annie is completely different. Whereas I'm like, hey, exactly what you were saying before. There's a lot of boundaries. It's like you will learn to wait. It was interesting because I was raised by non-sacrals because I'm adopted. But I've had the experience recently to hang back out with my birth mother. I've known her for quite some time, and watching her, because she's a Manny Gen, bum, 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 bum. And I'm like, fuck, thank God I wasn't bloody raised by you, because I would have been exhausted. It was just this moment. I was just thinking, wow, you don't stop, do you? To the point I actually, because I just said to her numerous times, just slow down. Like, I thought, oh God, I sound like an old person. But I was like,
Yeah.
no, wait. No,
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. It was just so interesting watching this dynamic of just going, holy crap. Boom, boom, boom,
It
boom.
is. Yeah, it is. I feel like nowadays, like, I don't know, it's weird. So both of my parents are generators. But with my mom, I was also adopted twice, but like within my family and whoever they were like married with. And so I did find out that my aunt, who is one of the people that took part in raising me, was a projector. And that also made a ton of sense to me because I always felt kind of closer to her than like my birth mom, or like my grandma also took part in raising me a lot. And she's also a generator. And I was like, man, it kind of just makes sense, like thinking back to all the times that her and I would just like almost like potato together is what I want to call it, and I didn't get that with anyone else but her. So that was also kind of validating for sure.
Yeah. It's a different energy. I find that, and you must find that too when you're probably one-on-one with your daughters. It's not as like you can kind of just relax.
Yep,
Um,
100%.
when you're around other people, it's like, oh, here we go. It's kicking in.
Ooh, also that empathy for them because they still, go to like public school, and I have so much empathy for that. Like when they get home and they're exhausted, it's like, I get you, which I think that, again, I'm thankful for human design and that understanding of that as well. Otherwise, I might have just been like, oh, I gotta push you like all the other kids,
Yeah.
But yeah, I can totally see that.
And because I have a partner, I'm not sure if you have a partner who lives with you as well, but it's also educating them to just say, just let her chill out, But
Yep.
I'm very grateful and lucky because my partner's a 2/4, so he's just as introverted as me, and I'm like, thank gosh.
Yes, mine's definitely. So I have a 6-2 generator partner, and he is also a homebody. So yeah, I'm very grateful for that. I feel like I'm actually more social than him. So yes, and yes, also educating him. Like, and I feel like it is funny for him. He talks about how like everyone in the house is an energy vampire, and I was like, I can kind of see where you're coming from with that.
We're just sucking you dry, mate. We're just
Yeah,
just just,
exactly.
just sucking on your. That sounds terrible. We're sucking on your sacral.
It is kind of like that though. Like he comes home from work and he's like the sun, and we all just kind of like find our way to him. It's really weird.
We do naturally, and I love that. Just observing that as well. A friend of mine the other day was just sort of saying, "I'm just a generator," and I said, "Oh no, you're not just anything. You are warm like sunshine."
Mm-hmm.
Because generators, they are. We want to gravitate towards them. The beautiful things. It's just like, hi, I'm just
Yeah,
going to bathe here, and
I
oh,
love generator energy so much. Like I love projectors in the sense that it's like I feel like when it comes to that being seen, that's probably the closest you're gonna get. But there is still like I don't know, there's this frustration, I guess, between myself anyway and projectors in my life. But with generators, it always just feels fun and easy and warm and like it just feels like a good time. It feels like a break, from everything else. So I love the generators in my life.
yeah, yeah. I I've often sort of not struggled, that's probably not the right words, but fully defined, well, nearly fully defined. Like if you get a generator who's pretty much 8 out of 9 centers defined, oh, sometimes they can be like moving a ball. It's like,
Uh-huh.
oh, there's no getting in there. It's just like boom, big old
That's my
dinosaur.
grandma. That's
Yeah.
my Yes. And you know what's funny is when I was telling my projector aunt about all of this, she was like, have you looked up my grandma, I call her Graham. She's like, have you looked up Graham's chart? Because I feel like you and her are a lot alike. And I looked her up and saw all of her definition. I'm like, it's just funny that that's your observation, like yeah, of course you're saying the reflector is a lot like her.
I love that. And I've done
Yeah.
that, because there's the reflector birth times chart that I've got there. It's around on the internet. I know it. I've got it on mine. And just sadly, it only goes back to the 40s. So I've had to sort of like plug in my own ephemeris stuff to try and find more just reflectors back in my
Oh yeah.
past.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a journey to do that manually, but I have so much now. I have so much respect for some of these OGs who they did all these transit tracking manually. We're so
Yeah.
lucky now we can just pull up our phone and go, what's happening? But
Yeah.
it's it's a gift. It's a
I
gift.
cannot imagine. I cannot imagine. Yeah. I feel like that's also why I still love astrology when it comes to tracking transits so much because it does kind of take that 64 complexity and simplify it. I don't know. It just feels like it's easier to kind of live with the moon in a zodiac sign kind of way rather than a gates kind of way.
Yeah. Which system do you use for astrology? Do you use whole sign or which one
Yeah,
do you use?
no, well, I guess it depends. I'll use whole sign if I'm doing transit readings for someone. When it comes to like birth chart readings, so I like Placidus and then tropical.
Yeah.
But Destiny has kind of stretched me into to looking more into to all the other chart variations as
Oh,
well.
far out. That girl, she sends you down rabbit holes after rabbit holes. What's your type in True Sidereal?
A manifester,
You're a Manny too.
yeah, a 3-5 manifester. I know, isn't that wild? Like, I don't know. Me and her have totally schoolgirled about that a long time too. And she's helped me kind of understand the manifester type. And I can really kind of feel now, like I need to dig more into my other charts, but I feel like I have been digging more deeply into my true sidereal chart. And I can kind of see like how one leads into the other, you know, like almost like one feels a little bit more soul and the other one feels a little bit more like matrix, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I remember going through that with her because my true sidereal, I'm a 2/4 reflector. And I know I really feel into that. But then in one of the other charts, it was like a 1/3 manifester. And I tell you what, when that hit home, that was
Yeah.
just like, oh, I could feel that in my body of just going, that's an absolute yes. Yeah, I love it. Again, I love it. I love just the exploration of just going, what if? What if?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fun.
And
It's
like you said too, like I feel like the experimentation part of it is obviously a big to my own evolution, right? Like I know all the things, but how am I actually like practicing or applying or playing around with? I can see the manifester thing come out between Destiny and I all the time. Like we go through our own creative cycles and we kind of like, it's also funny that we do this with each other while we're like suggest things to each other, you know, like you should read this or you should watch this podcast, and she'll do the same to me. And it's like, it'll kind of go around us until we're finally ready. And then it's like, yeah, remember that podcast I told you to watch like a month ago?
yeah,
I don't know. I love watching that interplay too.
I love it all. I'm in a deep dive at the moment with asteroids.
Ooh,
And looking at holographic charts, and it's like, oh, where did I go with that? So it's given
yeah.
me again another appreciation of the whole system, opposed to just going, well, this is my chart, this is who I am. It's just like, no, 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 you know, there's
Yep.
so much more to us than just what we see. Um, yeah, but I feel you.
It's so
It's like,
humbling too, you know, when you come around a new corner of something to learn about, and like you do realize how infinite this is. When it comes to the asteroids, what asteroids in particular?
oh, all of them.
All of them. Okay.
I'm studying under Kim Gould, and it's because she's got she uses Taraka, and it's her system, and so it links into to all of them. And then if you want something, but just really noticing at the moment what's sitting on my sun, you know, and
Mm.
things like that. Of just going, holy dooly, this really, packs a punch of just going and being able to sort of like monitor the asteroids in the transits because using that feminine energy of the asteroids. So it's just wow. I feel like such a novice, but at the same time I get really excited. I like, again, it's coming back to that learner. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
like learning,
Yeah.
but I'm careful about what I say because again I need that solid foundation of going, oh, don't say too much because you probably fucking got it wrong. But it's like, oh well, that's half the fun.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And again, like there's just it's just infinite, you know? So like even if like it's that I don't know, I feel like I always get to this point when it comes to any learning journey where you realize like at the end we're all right and we're all wrong, and kind of I don't know, taking it as like just this funny little joke.
Just enjoy the
But
ride.
right, but I definitely want to dive more into asteroids as well. I feel like I have like the main ones kind of down that I watch, but there's so many. There's
So
so
many.
many. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know there's the like this series and those Psyche and all those kind of ones, but I'm getting into Leviathan, Atlantis, White
Yeah, see.
Selena, looking at the three different Liliths, so Dark Moon Lilith and all that kind of stuff because that sits right on my Chiron. So all of this stuff again is just like, ooh, and you look
Yes.
at it, it's like you got to pick the scab when you're looking at this, going,
Yeah.
oh shit, here it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this makes a bit more sense. It's like something's giving me a educational way for me to address some of the wounds and just go, yeah, that might explain a little bit. And it's okay for you to look at, peel the
Yep.
little scab off and have a
Peel
look at
another
that.
layer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That I can totally see that with the asteroids again, to kind of bring that layer into like how complex it all really is. Yeah, because there's all of that, you know, and Dark Moon Lilith is one of my favorite ones to kind of dive into. That and Chiron, I've seen the impacts of that. I'm glad that more people in the human design world are kind of like at least coming online to Chiron and looking into what gates, you know, that's in for you, because I feel like that also adds a really, really thick layer, I guess, of stuff to work through. So that's
Yeah.
also cool.
It is. It's all
It
you just
is.
nerd out, and like that's what's so good. As you were saying, you've got some mates who you can just really geek out and nerd out
Mhm.
on. If you if you had your time again, this is a trick question here. Actually, it's not. It's just a hard one because there's so many answers that you could say. What do you think if you had your time again? What would you have really liked to be supported in on your reflector journey that's not
That's a
around?
great question. That's a great question. Hmm. I guess like the only thing that's kind of really coming to me is I feel like it took me a long time to make friends in the reflector community. I think that like I always had this weird subconscious thing that I would do where I just always felt guilty about like reaching out to people or asking people for questions or asking people questions, stuff like that. So that definitely came up again within the reflector community, but it's like once I did, I felt so great and comfortable to do so. I kind of just wish that I would have done that sooner, that I wouldn't have kind of like watched from afar and stayed in this like lonely little bubble for all of that time, kind of sifting through it all by myself, because I do really see just how much more useful it's been to go through this with other reflectors rather than on your own. So I would say, yeah, if like you're just starting out in this reflector journey, get you a reflector.
Yeah. Find a
Yeah,
mate. It
yeah.
is. And it's so hard sometimes to know which groups feel safe because even some of the reflector groups, it doesn't always feel safe for certain people.
Mm-hmm.
They're embarrassed. They're like, they don't want to appear like they're asking a silly question. But
Mm-hmm.
everyone starts somewhere, or even the most experienced people who think they've got it all sorted will say really dumb shit. And it's just like, yeah, well, that's just the way it goes. But I think I'd like to echo onto that is find a group that feels good for you
Yeah,
because
yeah.
not all groups are created equal.
And I would say too, just like another shout out to Destiny with that. I feel like she's a really good example of someone in the reflector community that always makes people feel like she's someone you can go to for questions or for support. And so I don't know. Like I guess I'm just saying that like those are green flags for us to kind of go towards. Not to like overwhelm, someone with all of your stuff, but yeah, I think just to have someone and also just to have someone kind of say that they get it, that they've been through what you're going through, or they understand why you feel the way that you feel, or even like have some kind of thing they can pull from your chart to explain that. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's next level for sure.
Yeah, I love that advice because it's just we need each other because
Mm-hmm.
we're still figuring it out too. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a nice note for people to go, we're still all figuring this out as well.
Yes. And I would say too that I think that like for myself as a reflector, a big part of that journey has been community. And so like I said, I really try hard to like build a local community that I try to kind of be in the heart of. And so reflectors are rare, like I don't have any local reflectors. I know of a couple, but they're not like in my space as often. And so having like even like just these internet friends, as reflectors is just it's helpful for me to be able to be the best I can be in these communities, if that makes sense. So it's almost like I feel like reflectors kind of coming together is helping us all wherever the hell we live, whatever we're kind of putting our hands on around ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. And I've often because I do have reflectors in my immediate space, but we're very self-efficient. We're very self-capable. I don't think I've ever met a reflector who just can't get by. Um, I know that we all struggle at certain times, but for most parts, we're very adaptable and we're very
Mm,
resilient. There's that word again that I don't care much for, but it's true. That's
yeah.
my experience. We don't need a lot of hand holding. We're quite
Yeah.
capable of looking after ourselves, which
Which
is,
makes yeah, that actually does. That's a good point. It makes a lot of sense even when it comes to the soundboarding part of being a reflector, because like you just said, it's almost like we really will figure it out on our own as long as there's, just someone kind of holding that safe space for you to do so, I think. Because I feel like from before, there was times where I could have handled it on my own, but I could get lost in the tangly branches, and stay stuck there a little longer than I'd like to. So I just feel like it's efficient to soundboard with other reflectors. It's
I
just the
love that
most
imagery.
efficient way.
I love that imagery. It's like, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, yeah.
Another thing that I found with reflectors is, just speaking to the manifestor, the manifestor is always like, well, don't tell me what to do. I'm like, don't tell a reflector what to do. I think we'll get madder than a
Yeah.
manifestor. It's like, don't even start bossing a awake or a very aware reflector, because it's like,
Mm.
don't push
That's
me, don't rush me, don't tell me what to do. It's like,
exactly. Yeah, well, and it's funny you say that because I was in a conversation with the reflector where she said something similar, but it's like, it's only because like we've already thought of it all. Like you can't really tell us what's wrong with us. We know, we're very aware of like all of our flaws and all of the different ways we could have done this or that. So it's like, I think that's why it's like we already know.
just get
Like,
out of
tell
my
us something
space.
we don't know. Yeah, yeah,
I'm happily living in denial here. Just
yeah.
go away. Don't need to tell me. I already
Exactly.
know. I just want to have my little moment. Just
Right.
bugger off. Oh, this has been great. Thank you. Now, please share with us your work, where people can connect with you. Um, yeah.
Okay, so back to kind of like my local community. So I help run a festival called Awaken the Witch here in Nebraska. So that's one part of my work that kind of takes up my extra time. And then also besides that, I am currently working on simplifying a lot of what I do. So like I started out studying astrology, and then I kind of went into I became a Reiki master. So I went into like energy healing and chakras. So when I found human design, yeah, I kind of did all just like, it was like that piece I needed to kind of combine all of the things. And then gene keys, like, oh my gosh, I can't even, like, wow, that's just been next level. So since all of these pieces have kind of come together, I'm like, how do I, like, what does my business look like after all of this, because it started as just like, hey, I'm reading astrology charts for fun. And it's went all these different places. Like I've even done psychic medium readings and kind of delved into that a bit. So I've went on all these different journeys. So I would say right now where I'm at though with all of this is and this is kind of like a part of my 1-3 as well. I knew all the things, but I needed a way to kind of like actually practice and try it out. So I read this book called The Alter Ego Effect, and all of a sudden that was like another piece that kind of clicked in where I'm like, and this might also go along with like my cross of the Sphinx as well, of like, especially with my life's work being in 13, because I have a tendency to kind of like be stuck in these archetypal stories of the past, and seeing like I kind of saw all of these modalities as like ways to work through things in the past. But the problem was that I was always working through things of the past, and like, when does this end? It probably won't ever end, because just like there's an infinite amount of things I can learn in the future, there's an infinite amount of places I can go in the past as well, right? Or in my charts, or etc., on and on. So I kind of have been working for like the last year and a half on these embodiment techniques to kind of like look at this all as like character development. Like I'm building my character, and then when I need to use this character, I can kind of like shift into it. And so for reflectors especially, we can shift into a lot of different characters, but like for my other clients, I help them kind of work on like what is their character, like what is their most authentic expression. And then just like again going into the experimentation of that, like what does it feel like to dress like that character or walk like that character, or what does that character talk like, what kind of spaces does that character go into. And I don't know, but it just feels like there's some kind of psychological thing going on, that when you look at it like that as like this character that you can kind of just like embody, it's been next level when it comes to that third line, when it comes to like actually like moving and shaking and making things happen. And so that's where I'm at in my business. That's what I help my clients do, is embody their character, and I'm digging it. I'm loving it.
I
And you
love
can
that.
find me on Facebook and Facebook, Instagram, and I also have a website. It's ericalane333.com.
What's the 333 mean for you?
So threes have a lot to do with my mom. My mom was born on January 3rd, and her dad was also born on January 3rd, and also the 13 for me. Um, and then also my mom passed away at 3 a.m. I don't know. Threes have just always kind of followed me in a lot of different ways. I have three tattooed on me, so it's just my number, I guess. It's just the
I love
number
it.
that picked me.
It's the number that picked you. How many, do you know how off the top of your head how many third lines you've got in your chart? Are you heavy third lining or?
Actually, honestly, when I think of my human design chart, I kind of think of my gene keys chart as well. And honestly, no, I have a lot, like in my Venus sequence, it's actually twos and fours and sixes. So no, not a lot of third lines actually. Just my
Yeah.
main profile.
I've got a lot of fives and a lot of threes. It's like sometimes you get in there and you're like, ah, that explains it.
Yeah.
It's like, bloody
Yes.
hell.
But my true sidereal chart is also a 3-5 chart profile in that one
Oh,
as well. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that helped make it make more sense too.
Third lining it. I love it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for jumping on and
Thank
chatting
you.
with me, sharing your
Thank you.
life and your story. I've just loved it. I love these conversations. They're just so
Thank
hearty.
you. Thank you so much, Annie. Like, seriously, thank you for doing this for all of us. Like, I have loved listening to your podcast and learning about all of these other reflectors. And, like, just so it inspires me to see how we're all just doing our own, like, really unique and cool things and bringing our superpowers into the world in a more, like, fully realized kind of way. So it keeps me happy and inspired.
Well, thank you for that kind words. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, bloody hell, it's 3 years. 3 and a bit years
Wow.
I've been doing this. I think that's the most I've ever stuck with anything in my life. Honestly, when we look back, that's a reflector thing. It's just like sometimes we look back on our life and we're like, I never really stuck with anything for this long,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. What do you
but
think it is about this that makes it easier to stick with?
because it's just using my natural gifts of just being, all I have to be is myself and just
Yep.
be that space where people can just talk. And it's just so healing what I was saying there before. It's just that we all get something out of this. We all get to be heard and seen and felt and appreciated. And there's so much, mirror to mirror, there's so much healing in that we take for granted. Well, I don't. I actually know how much we get out of it. It's just impactful, but it costs me very little to just be myself. It's a real reminder. It's really humbling, actually, to just go, we don't have to do all these things. We can just be.
Yeah, that is such a powerful, powerful lesson. So I would also like say that any reflector listening to this, I think that that's actually the key is to find something that you would do for free. Find something that fills your cup, and you won't have to worry, about that burnout because that will definitely happen when you're slaving away doing things you hate doing.
And just on that, if I may talk with you quickly about this,
Mm-hmm.
it's when you get into this, I'll share a bit of a story for me. Getting into this, doing all the study, doing readings, and then all of a sudden, I really lost interest in it. And I realized it was in a way, it's my hobby. I love to do it because I love to do it. But when you start turning a passion into something then that it's your bread and butter or you're making into a
Mm-hmm.
business, it's
Mm-hmm.
like it loses its energy, it loses its guts, it loses the passion.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I'm like, no. So I've really like figured that out of going, any readings and human design work that I do, it's for the pure joy of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
never going to be my bread and butter because as soon
Yeah.
as I make it a forced thing,
Mm-hmm.
it all the energy just falls out of the guts. It just don't wanna.
I
So
get you. I get you with that too. Yeah, I can totally resonate with that. Turning even what I do into a business, and I feel like every time I kind of like add a new layer on top of what I'm already doing, I really do. I have to have this time where I just keep it all for myself before I start right like exploiting it or adding it as like another service or something for the same exact reason. So that's
yeah,
important.
yeah, it is just. I know, yeah, it's just this period of time about 2 years ago where I was kind of nearly going all in, and I'm just like, oh, just why am I suddenly like the books? I didn't open them anymore. I didn't have that feeling of that first line kicking in, going, whoa, what can I
Yes.
find now?
Yes.
Makes me a great
Yes.
counselor. It makes me a great counselor because that's what I do. It's just social worker and a counselor. I can just be. Can just be.
I love that. I love that. And I think that that's a good way to kind of like, maybe that is like a way of being as a first line that I also really love, because I love when people kind of pull out all the random stuff, you know, that I thought maybe didn't matter, didn't mean anything, but in a conversation or in a session with someone, all of a sudden they're pulling out like the recesses of my brain of that book I read 10 years ago, you know, and it feels, then it almost like brings that feeling back to life again. So
yeah, ignites your fire again. I love that. Do those things.
Yes.
Do things that ignite your fire and your passions. Oh, thank you again. Lovely.
Thank you so much, Annie. It was so great just to get to talk to you. I've been looking forward to this. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you. All right. You have a good time now. Keep in touch. Talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye.